if there's an episode that I've ever done that impresses upon you the importance of your digital reputation, your digital footprint, your social media omnipresence, this is the one. Because everything I talk to in the next 2.5 episodes really is not going to be of any concern to you, because without inquiry, without opportunity, without good top of funnel, you don't have the ability to create revenue. And then, of course, if you've not got enough leads and you've not got a good enough choice, then you're going to work for people that maybe you would prefer not to be working for. How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. My name's Max, I'm your host. I'm the founder of Elite Business Advisory. We focus on a lot of customized coaching for contractors, and also the CEO of Smith & Sons here in Canada. Good to have you along. Welcome to you if this is your first time. Thanks for checking us out. And big thank you if you are if you're a regular listener and you're here again. I appreciate you lending me your ear. Okay, look, I want to get cracking. I'm been running part series, and this today is no different. So we've just come off the back of the pre-construction agreement. I hope that was helpful. If you've got any questions about that content or anything else that you see on the Business for Builders channel, then be sure to email me, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com, or drop a comment below. Don't forget, like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're feeling generous, would love it if you could leave us a little bit of a review on your favorite or preferred podcast platform. So don't forget, Business for Builders VIP Facebook page. That's just a good location for some community camaraderie and some collaboration there, guys. We need to talk to each other. I just think there's too much secrecy going on, and the majority of us don't really know the complete, well-rounded view of what a controlled business looks like. So I don't know what we are protecting. So, a lot of the motivation for me doing this podcast was exactly that. Let me, dispel myths, and let me bring to the marketplace a bunch of information that can help you grow your business. So don't forget, folks, the more you learn, the more you earn. So, one spreadsheet's not going to change your life, but I think a lot of that micro information, and as long as you can put it together across the board, it's going to serve you well. Right, let's get after it. Steak and potatoes. Look, I think as we are kind of at the beginning of the year, we're into April as we record this now, and I now that I'm speaking, my whole day job is dealing with general contractors and business development in the construction sector, and obviously I'm part of the Smith & Sons group internationally. I've got business partners from Australia, and so I get feedback and insights and assistance in that regard. As it relates to business development. So we're always collaborating and communicating on that front. So, because it's the beginning of the year, I'm optimistic about 2024, more profit, profit more in 24 is what we're talking about. And I think it's important that we just consider doing business this year much differently to what we did it last year and the year before, unless you're really satisfied with those results. So give me a head nod if you're happy. Shake your head if you're not happy. So I'm going to assume for the most part that people are in a position where they go, look, Max, under the situation, we did 10 years worth of work during COVID in 2 years. And yet now what's happened is the dust has settled, and now it's like anyone can make money in a boom. Okay. It takes a real construction gangster business guy or girl to really make it work currently. So there's a couple of challenges on several fronts. Lead generation by far is the greatest challenge. Quoting jobs properly for profit is certainly the other challenge. Getting human resource, that's another challenge. So there's a whole raft of things that will continue to be a challenge no matter what the marketplace is doing, no matter what the interest rates are doing. However, in Canada, what I've heard is that interest rates will flatten, and because they've cooled off inflation a little bit, and so hopefully that will then create some confidence in the marketplace. I know that one of my guys has got about 8 at not pre-construction agreement that are waiting for a decision to go to pre-construction agreement, and they're just stalled. And so, we're asking ourselves the question, why are they not moving ahead? There was a lot of positive talk in the site meeting and a few communications after that, but then all of a sudden we get ghosted. So, hands up all those who get ghosted. Yep, we do. We're no different. People do get a bit nervous, and I think with the pre-construction agreement, see what happens with that pre-construction agreement, you're asking for a commitment, because these clients are asking us for a commitment. They're saying, hey, Max, can you please quote my $250,000 addition, or whatever the case may be. And yet they're not that serious about getting after it. Whereas when we talk about a pre-construction agreement, I'm saying for your $250,000 addition, I'm going to need $2,500 to oversee and orchestrate the whole process. That's when we get crickets. So, guys and gals, if you are operating and you're using that, and I urge you that if you've not listened to the last 3 episodes, it was all about the pre-construction agreement. I would begin to sort of familiarize yourself around that and really understand the benefits of doing that as well. But, going forward, I just feel like, guys and gals, if we're trying to not just maintain our current altitude, but we're trying to increase that or improve that, then the way we're going to improve that is by looking at the business performance on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And so what the next 3 episodes are going to be, and I'll say 3 now, I was going to split this into 4, but we'll see how we go. What we're going to do is I'm going to introduce you to what I do personally as a technical or a technician, as an operator, as a business development, or as a company owner, what I look at on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to really help me understand what's going on with my business. So, I want you to probably save the next 3 episodes and then re-listen to them, because there's going to be a lot of data that, I'm going to speak to that is going to be hard to sort of organize it in your brain. So I'm going to go through, basically what I've got is I've got my spreadsheet printed out, essentially, and it goes across 4 pages. In there's different formulas and different notes as it relates to how we go about using the spreadsheet. But I'm going to just speak to the columns or the categories outlining what it is that I need to pay attention to. Now, what you've got to understand is that there is columns that may be fairly benign, like lead numbers, and we'll get to that in a minute. But what that does is that it helps me speak to things at the back end. So, when you look at this spreadsheet, it's left to right, and we're looking at the back end, really what our marketing performance is like. And so, I want to clarify too that there's what this spreadsheet does for me and my builders or my general contractors is it tells me how the business is operating, and it really does expose where there is items that need my attention. So we'll probably cover some of that off. So just be understanding that a lot of these components overlap, interrelate, and are interdependent. And they do notify me of where there might be a deficiency in one column, but it's reflective of something that's not happening elsewhere in the business. So let's get cracking. Look, I've got here on this one, a 2024 goal. Look, guys, when you hear me talk about, we've got to reverse engineer the business. So we start with the end in mind, and we're just talking purely about a revenue or a sales goal. I don't care how you slice it. You might say, Max, I want to sign $4 million worth of contracts. Great. If you sign a $400,000 contract on December 28th, mazel tov. That will then extrapolate out the next year, and you'll come up with a revenue number as well. So you could look at either or, it's up to you. But either way, what we're looking at doing is achieving that $4 million goal. And so really with that end in mind, we've then got to understand, okay, what is my conversion rate? And if you've not considered that, and maybe you've been listening to me long enough to go, okay, yeah, I understand, I've heard you say it before, then that's good. So, I think a fairly basic, and I'm just talking about a conversion rate from, the phone rings and it's a lead to a contract. Now, I'm not talking about the conversion rate from when we go to a pre-construction agreement and we get them through that whole design, plan, and price process, which includes the QTS or quantity takeoff, service, and bill of quantities. We're not talking about that ratio. We're just talking from the initial inquiry to contract. How many what is that? So for us, on average, most of the time it's a little better than this, but let's say out of 5 inquiries, we'll get 1 lead. Okay, so that's about 20%. So, with that in mind, if I want to do $4 million worth of revenue and my conversion rate is 20%, I'm going to need to multiply my 2024 goal by a factor of 5. So 5 times 4 million is 20 million. So I'm going to need $20 million worth of inquiry to ensure that as long as I hit my 20% conversion rate, it will end up with $4 million worth of contracts, okay? So this starts to give you a bit of an idea how, going, I'm just going to hit $4 million, and you've got no real understanding. You've just plucked a number out of you-know-what, and you've just thrown it on the wall going, I'd like to do that. But really there's no method or madness around, there's more madness than method as to how you're going to achieve that goal. Now, let me break it down again, because remember, what we're trying to do is make sure that the data isn't overwhelming, it's easily understood, and that we can take something that's complex and make it simple. And of course, when you look at this spreadsheet, it could be overwhelming because there is a shit ton of information contained therein. But what I like to do is just break down, we're talking about one row, 1 month, and then we're talking about these columns, and basically we just want to pay attention to one column at a time, okay? So based on our $4 million goal with our 20 million, so what I call that $20 million is, now you might go, well, Max, how do I measure that? Well, what we're talking about is the inquiry forecast build value, so FBV. Forecast build value. So if I get an inquiry for, let's call it a kitchen, dining, living, lounge, main floor, including a bathroom and a butler pantry, but not including the bedrooms, that might be $150,000 to $200,000 project. And so I'd always lean on the side of being a little more conservative. So don't go 200, call it 150. And I know that because we've done a couple of jobs in that regard. And so we've got some historical data. You would have heard me mention that in the last one of the last 3 episodes about my historical data and my experience. And so what we would do is that's how we correlate the figure on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. We do create a forecast build value. Now, because at Smith & Sons head office, we do a lot of their digital marketing, which is where the majority of our leads come from. We urge our builders to give us a hit back. If Max says that it's 150,000, but we go out there and it's a massive place and it's more like 50 grand more than what he allowed, and it is 200, we're asking that they give me back that number so I can actually make my forecast build value number more accurate. Right. So our overall goal for revenue or sales contracts is 4 million. Our forecast build value revenue target, the inquiry that we want for the year is 20 million based off of a 20% conversion rate. So 4 million times a factor of 5 equals 20 million. Now, we want to drill that down because that's okay. That's the whole year. But what I want to monitor is, and this is the upside of this type of spreadsheet approach, is that I want to be able to forecast, okay? Accountants are retrospective. And guys, if you can't sort of see me on the podcast, I'm flapping my arms around. And, what we want to do is we want to be able to see around corners. We need to give ourselves the best chance of understanding where the business is going to be 90 days from today. So when we're dealing with our accountant at the end of the year and we haven't been monitoring the numbers, what can happen is it's like, Max, well, you haven't had a very good year. You've actually got, you've lost 40 grand and you've got a tax bill. And so that then compresses the available cash that you've got, and it creates a multitude of stress. So if you didn't do well in that first year, what are you going to change in the next year to try and unbroke your business? And I think, probably 15 episodes ago, I did a video called How to Unbroke Your Business. So if you're in a bit of a pickle, you need to go and search that video out. It was called How to Unbroke Your Business. But guys, if you've got that deep into it, it's because you're not watching your numbers. So the idea of this spreadsheet, this key metric spreadsheet, is so that you can monitor the business day to day, week to week, month to month, then use that data. And remember, bullshit in, bullshit out. So if it's not accurate going in, the data that we are looking at is not going to be reliable. So the fact that we are making decisions that are data-driven, so we're making decisions off the back of what we can see. If we're not religious in putting that information in on a regular basis, normally in the activity of the business, when the lead comes in, you go, right, a lead number, what's its forecast build value? Put that in the spreadsheet. We can add notes so you can track what's been entered in as well. But if we're not monitoring that, then what we're trying to understand is the trajectory of the business positive or is the trajectory of the business negative? Okay, so think about that. That's what we've got. That's why we're tracking the data. We don't want to get to the back end of 12 months and have our accountant tell us the bad news. We want to be able to identify the lack of performance. And remember, we're all about developing high-performance building companies. But what we want to do is we want to identify the negative trajectory or the lack of performance and then do an assessment on the whole business as to, okay, why is the trajectory negative? What is it that we're doing that is not impactful or that is not making a difference or not making improvement to our bottom line? So to that point, we've got the 20 million overall of inquiry that we know we're going to need if we are converting at 20%. So here's the kick too. If your conversion rate's 10%, you need more inquiry because your sales capability is down. So immediately in the first two columns, we're saying, well, that factor of 5 or 20% of 20 million, that is okay. But if I'm not converting at 20% and I'm converting at 10%, then that's going to put a whole bunch of back pressure on the business, okay? Now, you might sit there and go, Max, I have no clue as to what my conversion rate is. Well, there you go. That really just speaks to me and says that that's what happens. You know what? You're not the only one. You're not Robinson Crusoe. You're not sitting on an island by yourself. Because for me as an apprentice carpenter in the, from 89 to 93, nobody even talked to me about that. And even when I was getting my builder's license, nobody ever talked to me about my conversion rates as it relates to the sales component within my business. And I'd been in the game for 20 years by then, and not once did anyone say, hey, what's your conversion rate in your sales, as part of your sales? Nobody. So let's break it down. So let's say the conversion rate is good. Then what we want to look at is a month to month. So we want to analyze, we want to trap the data as it happens during the month. And so the next column is the inquiry forecast build value required per month. So we go, right, we've got an overall goal of $20 million for the year. We've got to receive $1.67 million worth of inquiry. So depending on, now this starts to really allude to the fact that if you haven't got your marketing stuff sorted out, then the rest of this is not going to mean anything to you. So if there's an episode that I've ever done that impresses upon you the importance of your digital reputation, your digital footprint, your social media omnipresence, this is the one. Because everything I talk to in the next 2.5 episodes really is not going to be of any concern to you, because without inquiry, without opportunity, without good top of funnel, you don't have the ability to create revenue. And then, of course, if you've not got enough leads and you've not got a good enough choice, then you're going to work for people that maybe you would prefer not to be working for. So, right, so now we're talking about a $4 million revenue goal or a sales goal. We're talking about $20 million as it relates to the overall year's worth of inquiry. That thins down to $1.67 million per month. And so then the next two columns are really just, one is a column that's just going to speak to the cumulative total as you make entries in the forecast build value per month. As you enter the data, it would then just keep adding up the cumulative value of the numbers of leads that you got. So now we've got a calculator or a way to table the results of the month that's just finished. And so it takes the brain power out of it. All you've got to do is data entry. The other part of, picking up the forecast build value is the lead numbers. I used to say to my guys, hey, how many leads do you need this week? And they'd go 5. And I'd go, right. So I get them, one good bathroom lead, and then I get them a whole bunch of handyman leads. And I go, right, I gave you 5 leads, but they want to quote 100 grand's worth of work, and I've given them 5 leads only worth 35 grand. Okay. So this is where we definitely want to trap the numbers of leads, because that's going to speak to our marketing reporting at the end of this spreadsheet as well. But what's most important is why we just talked about the forecast build value, of the leads coming in. So obviously, as we tally up the numbers of leads coming through, that automatically gives us a bit of a cumulative running total as well in the next column. And then, of course, the next column here is the contract dollar value signed this month. So, again, in the next episode, I'm going to talk about, or possibly we're going to get to fixed expenses. But essentially, if you need to, let's say, you need to invoice $35,000 a month, or whatever the case may be, because you've only got $10,000 or $12,000 fixed expenses. It's fair to say that if you're just going to break even, which I don't encourage you to do, I encourage you to actually overdo it. Hit your, what I call your preferred monthly billables target, which is generally 15% of your above your break even point. We want to be able to say, right, in 3 months, I want to be able to hit that invoicing amount. So if I want to do, let's say $42,000 a month, then this month I've got to sign $42,000 worth of contracts. If that's what I want to do, so at the end of 12 months, my accountant says, oh, you've done really well, you've got a net profit of 10% out of your revenue. It's like, I know why, because I've been tracking this data the whole way through. And that's no news to me. You should know before you hit the accountant's desk, where your business is up to. So the final column for this episode is the contract value of what you sign this month, because what you need to know is that, and I know this is probably really common sense, but if you, in January and February, if you did not sign any contracts, that tells me that if you've got work underway at the moment, there's going to be a gap between, the work that you're doing now and maybe that job, which means if you've got overheads and fixed expenses, you're not going to be able to pay your bills. And if you don't hit your break even point, i.e., let's say $35,000 just to break even, cover your cost of goods sold, cover your running costs and maybe your wage, then the business is going to be in a little bit of a valley for maybe 1 or 2 months. So it's always good to just keep an eye on what contracts are being signed. Now, the thing I know about construction is the gestation period of a deal. So the time we get a phone call, it could be as much as 90 days. Now, I've done $25,000 deals where I've done the quote, on the, in the truck after the meeting, and basically gone back to the client at that same meeting on that same day and got a bit of a handshake around that $25,000 mark. And then I've gone back to the computer and I've run it through my software, and I think we closed that deal at $25,600. Client was happy to get started. I think I was literally underway. No major permits were required, just an electrical permit, and we're off to the races. So some jobs you can get to contract, let's say 30 days, maybe less. But there's some of the bigger jobs, like we're looking at one $550,000 addition. That's going to need 6 to 8 weeks of permitting. It's a long-winded approach. So you've got to understand, for us construction operators, we don't just go, hey, we get a go-ahead from a client, but we may not be able to get to construction, which is where we make our money. We may not be able to do that for several months. And so keeping a record or a scoreboard on how many dollars worth of contracts you signed this month, what you can do is now you can watch how it performs. So we want to be calculated. So the definition of calculated is that everything that you do is done with full awareness of the likely consequences. So guys and gals, what we're trying to do in our business is really operate our business, build our business, develop our business with full awareness of the likely consequences, okay? So what we're saying is, yes, we're trying to forecast, we're trying to see around corners, and by identifying spots within the year that you haven't signed contracts, that's going to help you understand that in 3 months, 6 months, there could be a bit of a lull unless you pick up something to fill the gap short notice, okay? So the challenge with our business is there's so many moving parts and there's so many levels of unpredictability. It certainly does make, monitoring the business a challenge. So guys, I just want to, I'm going to call it quits. That's episode 1. We've just run right through from our forecast goal for the year. We've talked about conversion rates. We've talked about the forecast build value that we need at the end of the year. We've talked about the forecast build value each month that we require. We talked about the importance of the numbers of leads, because it's going to help us calculate how we're doing with our marketing, and we should be doing marketing. And then, of course, really watching, because what we're trying to do is create urgency. So if you're watching the contract dollar values that you've signed or haven't signed, you're either going to be happy with that outcome or that report, or you're not going to be happy with it. And if you're not happy with it, that's when you've got to go on the hunt and go, okay, I've identified a problem. There's a gap in my process. If I do a root cause analysis, what is it that's going to give me the remedy or the solution for that? And that is why we do what we do. So, for me as a business coach, as well as a franchisor here at corporate office in Canada for Smith & Sons, this is what we do a lot of. There's a lot of the business development working on your business, analyzing the performance of the business, identifying the things you're doing well, and then, of course, identifying the things that are not up to speed or up to par, and working quickly at bringing your attention to those and then figuring out what the remedy is. And I've had to do that more than once for more than one operator. There's a lot of fulfillment there because, guys, again, just to close out, the opposite of order is disorder, and disorder pretty much means you're in a state of chaos. And so what we're trying to do to remove you or bring you out of chaos into control, we need to turn your business that might be full of disorder, we need to bring order to that, and that will move us into a state of control. And I know when I've talked to general contractors and I say, hey, look what we've done in a month, and I say, how do you feel? And he said, look, my whole business is just different. I feel more peaceful or at peace because now I feel in control, okay? So the opposite of in control is out of control, and normally you feel out of control because you're in chaos, and the reason you're in chaos is because you have disorder or no order, and so we want to change all that. So, guys, look, I hope you enjoyed that real quick episode. Stick with me next week. We will punch out 2 more episodes as it relates to key metrics. That's pretty much what we're dealing with right now. Really monitoring, your business performance, and then being able to make data-driven decisions, both to make, changes in what we do to rectify problems, or then double down on things that we are doing well to really build a successful business. Got any questions? Leave comments below. Feel free to share this podcast with another GC or another builder who you think might get some benefit out of this. And be generous because there's plenty of opportunity in the world. Get across to Business for Builders VIP if you're a good sort and you answer the questions, okay? I will let you in. Good place for some community, camaraderie, and some collaboration. And then, if you've got some questions for me specifically about your business and maybe, chatting to me about, hey, Max, what's customized coaching for contractors look like? Hit the book a consultation button and maybe just let's catch up for 30 minutes. No obligation. Let's just have a chat. And I'll give you as much value as I can as it relates to your business from a customized standpoint. Look, if you're having trouble finding a spot there, hit me up on email, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com, and we'll figure out a space and we'll get you 30 minutes at least. So go build a kick-ass business. See you in the next episode. Cheers.